conscious information. Welcome to African American and African Radio, the talk show that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the so-called African American didn't find his way to America stuck in the trunk of a ship. I'm your host, Buck Wylam, and tonight we're going to have an interesting show tonight. Very interesting. Something that we all can get our teeth into. We're going to talk about hybrid foods. We're going to talk about hybrid animals. And we're going to talk about hybrid people. Now, we all think we know what hybrid is. What is a hybrid? There's a hybrid car now. But tonight, call your friends, call your family, call the person that's watching this game. Brother tonight is going to explain what hybrids are and how do hybrids affect us. So that's the treat for tonight. Joining me as always, my co-host Rick Moon. What's going on, brother?
Ain't nothing but I just want to say hello to all the good people out there and get ready for a good show tonight.
Hey man, have you ever had a coconut that when you open up the coconut is really like an orange?
No.
Would you eat that?
No.
Yeah, I bet you be eating that orange chicken at them Chinese food places. You know they be dog, don't you?
And I love them nieces to pieces.
Also joining us from Memphis is Niecy Nichelle. Niecy, how you doing this evening?
Hey, how's everybody doing? Arise, family. Hey, we're ready to share some knowledge with you.
All right, so Niecy, have you ever had a banana, and when you peeled the banana, it was like a strawberry up under it?
No, I have to pass on that.
Okay, what about fish that tastes like bacon?
Oh no, no. If I wanted to eat some pig, I would.
Okay, well listen. Tonight we have on the line brother Cyre Sirrah. Brother, how you feeling tonight?
Oh, I'm cool. Keep you up to everybody.
Thank you, and thank you for being with us tonight.
Yeah, no problem.
Brother.
It's a great show.
Thank you, brother, and thank you for being here with us. Listen.
And I love that song, man. That song is really dope.
It's a cool song, huh?
Hey, that's right. I see some haters in the chat. They, but I don't mind them. It's a good song. It's
a good song. Well, listen, brother, we glad that you're here to share with us tonight. I mean, I hate wasting time, so we're gonna we're gonna ask you a few questions about this hybrid thing. But before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into hybrid? Because you sound like a young brother.
Yeah, I'm a young man. I'm 30 years old.
Okay, so. Let me just say this, and I want to give it to you. A lot of time we hear about our young people is nothing nice. So I just want to commend you, brother, for taking on something and something that can be helpful, and you taking and expanding on it and making it better and making it simpler for our people to digest. And I really, really appreciate you for that.
Oh yeah, no problem.
All right, man. So tell us about yourself and how you got into the hybrid foods and the animals and people and all that.
Well, first off, I'm just like everybody else in this country. Eating all those things that they've been given to us, the cow, the pig, the chicken, all those hybrid things, the fake fruit, the frankenfruits. I ate chitlins, hog mugs, all those things, just like everybody else. I witnessed in my family and outside of my family things that I feel contributed to their disease was the diet, without a doubt. So I eventually embarked on this health journey around maybe like 2003, 2004. I live in New York. I'm from New York, and this is like the epic center of fast food restaurants, all kinds. So in indulging in those things, I found certain things worked, certain things didn't. And I also seen the as a whole, the health state of, so-called black people, African American people that's indulging in these diets. So it created some curiosity within me to go try something different. So I started looking, because I started working in this gym in Manhattan, and I've interacted with people that talked about health, and so I started to change my diet. Started eating the fast food, and begin to eat more of like home cooked food. So I would go to like the Spanish restaurants and some gourmet places and started eating like baked chicken and grilled chicken, because, you know, that's what I was told was healthy than the fried chickens and the KFCs of the world. Then I came across a teacher who was a Rasta, and he was my EMT teacher, and he would go off of topic and talk about food, because he was into food, he was into health, and he was talking about things that was going on in the industry of food, and how it affected us as a whole. So that sparked some curiosity too, to look more into it, because he was coming from a vegetarian perspective. So I didn't stop eating meat at that particular time. That was like 2004, 2005. But some things I did stop doing, or I would moderate from eating the meat. And then I was in the train one day here, and there was some people handing out pamphlets, and it was like these Buddhist pamphlets, and it was the person in the pamphlet was a high priest, and she was coming from this vegan perspective and was talking about how our anatomy and physiology is not made to eat meat. And then she even went in, which shocked me, because like everybody else in our community, we have this Christian perspective that even if we're not paying attention to, we find ourselves saturated in. So she had showed that in the Bible, it said that in Genesis, it talked about how God said, I've given you every tree bearing fruit, and for you there shall be meat. And for every animal I've given them every green, for them there shall be meat. So I seen that, and I'm like, wow, you know, because I've never heard that. I never heard a preacher, I never heard a parent or a cousin, anybody refer to that in the Bible. So that affected me because I come from this Christian perspective. So I began to wean off the meat. It was around Thanksgiving time, and I took that and I went with it, and I felt differently from the way I felt before. Now, coming into the hybrids, well, educationally, let me go into some of my education. I had went to college. My major was biology, so that given me some a scientific background according to the European perspective, so I can understand some of these terms when they put them out there. Because I've majored in biology, I've majored in microbiology too, and I had to take courses like chemistry, organic chemistry, inorganic chemistry. So I understand the terms to a certain degree. So outside of that, I started to look, because I came across people like Dr. Sebi, who talked about how the cow isn't the original animal. He said the cow was a cross between a yak and a bison. So when he said that again sparked me to go look to see if that was true, and if it was true in other animals as well. And lo and behold, all these animals that they've been given to us are not indigenous, and they all are hybrids. They all are hybrids. So that's what pretty much kept me digging more and more and more, and coming across more information and really seeing what was going on behind the scenes.
Could you let the audience know what exactly is a hybrid?
Well, there's different definitions of a hybrid depending on who you're talking to. Some people will say, well, in nature, hybridization does occur. Okay, that's true. That's true to a certain degree. In nature, when a hybrid occurs, it's between two species from the same genome. It's never between two distinctive species from a different genome. Like a lily and a lily. A lily will have one lily will have a purple hue to it, and the other one may have a yellow hue to it. Now they're from the same family, they just have difference in color, so they will cross-pollinate. But a lily wouldn't cross-pollinate with a rose. You wouldn't get a rose lily. That wouldn't happen. You wouldn't have a tiger and a lion mating normally. The only way they would do that is if they're put in an environment where it's controlled and they're forced to do that. which they did. They created this animal called the liger, which is a cross between a male lion and a female tiger. Then science right now, definition for hybrid, what they're doing is selective breeding, where they're taking desired traits from one species and then crossing it with another one, and then creating this desired new breed of animal according to how they see it to be more beneficial or efficient for mainly commercial purposes, whether it's for farm raising or pharmaceuticals. It's all about the bottom line at the end of the day. And they go back and forth with hybrid and GMO, and they say hybrid is different from GMO and GMO is different from hybrid. Well, on the cellular level, when you alter the gene and you take out one trait and put in another trait from something else, you're genetically modifying that particular species. That's hybridization. And first, hybridization in GMOs is a thought process first. That's what we have to understand. And where is this thought process coming from? Who is resonating with this particular kind of thought process? It's not the American. It's not the indigenous folks around the globe. It is the hybrid that has invaded all these different communities around the globe that introduced this sort of science into it, and changes the landscape based off how it sees fit so that it can calibrate the planet to its natural habitat. That's why a lot of this is going on. So there's no difference between genetic modification and hybrid. And the manifestation of hybrid and genetic modification is first in the mind of something that is not natural. So to eradicate it, you have to approach it from a cellular level, because what affects these things is the parasite. It's the parasite that invades the cell and then alters the information, and then you have something totally indifferent to nature expressed.
Okay. Can you elaborate a little bit more? This is Nisi. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on the difference, and you're doing a great job in layman's terms, because I'm loving it, between hybrids and GMOs.
A hybrid would be the byproduct of something genetically modified. The hybrid would be crossing a tomato with a salmon, because they would do that so that they can grow the tomato in a colder climate. But that's how they kind of look at things. They look at the not only the phenotypical expression, which is the surface, like the color of the animal, the color of the plant, which they may desire in another thing. They also look at it from a cellular level, from a level of DNA, because certain animals can survive in certain environments. So they will take a salmon gene and put it in a tomato, because the salmon is usually inhabited like in the Arctic, in the cold waters. So for them to be able to transport tomatoes much more better in a colder environment, like those refrigerated trucks and stuff like that, also that it can sit on the shelf longer, they'll put a salmon gene in it, because they figure that it'll take some feedback. It'll possess the same traits as the salmon, so it'll be able to deal with the cold. Genetic modification is an extreme form of hybridization where they at today, because they're doing this in the lab. They're bioengineering it in the lab. So it's much more different. So what they would do, like one of the methods that they would do in the lab is called, it's like dealing with the embryo. So they'll take the embryo's DNA from another animal and then bioengineer it in the lab. Like for an example, they'll take a sheep and a goat. They'll take the DNA from the sheep and put it in the embryo of a goat. And then they'll get something called, like this is an animal called a chimera. It's CHIMERA. And this thing looks like it's been sewn together. Like if you look at it, it looks like, a doll or something. They created this in 1985. And when they did that, it gave ways to new possibilities to not only crossbreed animals' DNA with other animals' DNA, but also to interbreed with human cells. That's called transgenics. They've now, well, they've been doing it. They've been able to put the human's DNA into these animals so they can get desired traits. Because they think whatever you show, it will also show on the animal. Whatever you show will also show in the plant, that desired trait. And the hybrid, let's go into the etymology, because I like when Rick do that. He goes into the etymology of a word. Hybrid is a Latin word for hybridia, right? And it is, according to their definition, the offspring of a tame sow and a wild boar. Now, that's in the online etymology dictionary. If you look at Wikipedia, when they give the definition of a hybrid, they say it's from it's Latin based, right? And they say the same thing, the offspring of a tame sow and a wild boar. Then they say the child of a free man and a slave. You see? So there's a difference between the tame sow and then the wild boar, and there's a difference, as we know, between a free man and a slave. Well, the reason why they would crossbreed the two is because they're trying to create a new generation that will show the dominant traits of the desired animal. And in the case of a sow and a wild boar, they will want the new generation from the sow and the wild boar to be more obedient and more tolerant to domestication, to more tolerant to controlled environments. The same thing with the free man and the slave. They want to breed out the wild aspects of the free man and in turn create more of a slave. So as the slave begins to breed out the traits of the free man, the wild boar gets to breed out through the tame sow. Those genetic traits begin to dissolve. They don't express themselves anymore over generation to generation of interbreeding with the hybrid. Because the tame sow is a hybrid and the free man is a hybrid. There's been compromise on the cellular level. So it becomes more dominant after a certain amount of generations. And the other traits become recessive.
Hey, okay. And I wanted to ask you, if I could, sir, could you tell us about some of the things that are probably on the market now that humans are eating, that we're eating, and could you talk a little bit about plants, and also about hybrid people?
Okay, one of the things that we're eating right now that's a hybrid is the pork. That animal is not natural in its makeup at all. The original animal was the wild boar. And because we're eating it, it's not only impacting us in our bodies, it's also impacting our ecosystem. It's what they call a feral animal. So when we consume it, we're not only contributing to our physiology, our physiology death, we also contributing to our ecosystem death. So we're killing our environment outside and internally. So we're being attacked in so many ways, but we're voluntarily creating this attack. The pig was bred probably like around the 1800s, even later than that. They say when Columbus, some people say when Columbus, some research says when Columbus came over here, he brought them over here. Then they say Lesotho, and I think in the 1500s brought it over here and introduced it to the land. And since that particular time, they've been breeding it and kept interbreeding it and interbreeding it until they get a certain amount of desired traits. The reason why they got to keep changing breeds or interbreeding and mixing cells is because when they create the hybrid, it only lasts but for so long before it dies out. Because nature is indeed fighting back these hybrid things. That's why a lot of the crops and stuff are being attacked by the insects and stuff like that. And they're being uprooted out of the soil. Nature is indeed fighting back. And these animals are weaker strands. So what happens is, this is the reason why they got to give them antibiotics and stuff like that, is because they don't have the genetics to deal with certain diseases. And some of these diseases that these animals are experiencing on the farm is nature's way of getting rid of the waste of the pests to the planet. So they're being attacked. You know, they're getting these diseases or whatever because they're not natural anyway. They have to go. They have to get out of the planet. So what nature will do is, again, get rid of it, destroy it. It's not natural anyway. So they attract these diseases and stuff like that. And in turn, the farmer goes to antibiotics and all these things where they know, according to their research, that these animals are weaker strains of the original. And they constantly spending all this money to keep them healthy until slaughter time. That's all it is. They got to keep them healthy, and then they say to us like it's a natural thing for animals to get antibiotics. That's not natural. There's no wild animal, going to the vet to get a vaccine or something like that. Theirs are not being inoculated. Theirs don't even inoculate each other. They eat what they're supposed to eat. Another thing that we eat that's genetically modified is the bird. That bird is not in its natural state. Yes, it looks like a chicken or the guinea fowl, but it's not. As the saying goes, looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, but it's not a duck. It's not the same thing. If you look at the red guinea fowl, because the red guinea fowl is supposedly where the domesticated bird came from, which they call a broiler chicken. They are all birds and pigs or hogs with pigmentation that's been crossbred. But what they're feeding the masses is the one without the pigmentation, both the bird and the pig. The reason why that's important is because nature created things with a certain matrix, with a certain manifestation of color into their body, with a certain design with their organs, with a certain habitat for them to eat in. You say it all the time, Rick. We are people of the forest, and we blend in with the forest. So if you take a pink pig and put them out in the wild where there are a lot of predators, like tigers and stuff like that, they would stand out. The wild boar blends in with the environment. So it has they would have a much of a survival rate. That's why they got to keep those pigs and chickens and stuff inside in a controlled environment, because if they was out in the wild, they wouldn't survive. And when they do enter the wild, they become a problem for the ecosystem, like in Oklahoma, where now they're putting forth a plan to hunt these wild hogs and stuff like that, because they're eating the crops, eating wild plants. They're just an issue for the environment. Obama put a $20 million budget supposedly for this plan to eradicate these wild hogs. $20 million in this year just for wild hogs. And all the products that come from these animals is even more inferior than just eating the animal, because for one, they don't hold up in the whole commercial packaging process. So that, hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, brother.
Oh, okay. So since they don't hold up in the commercial packaging process, they have to use certain chemicals and things like that to create these products so they can have a longer shelf life. Like even with some of the meat, for example, they give them to us looking all plump and stuff like that. It's not because it's fresh. They actually put water inside of the meat and flavoring to give it flavor. You cannot have meat on the shelf for that long and think it's still fresh, when it's traveling so long. If you was to kill an animal and then set it out on the table for a day or two or whatever, it will begin to be putrid in your house or whatever. It will start to have a stink to it. So the only way they're able to give us these meats and that's been sitting on the shelf for so long is because they're taking different methods to keep them fresh. They give them color, or that's why they crossbreed them with another animal so that it can have that hue to it. But it's all deception. It's not what it appears to be. and we don't have no one telling us that these things are going on. It's all behind scenes. And at the same time, all this information that's being put out about the food and stuff like that, we got to understand we're in the middle of a war with these corporations. Because a lot of times it's one industry attacking the other to protect its interests. Even with some of this information about hybridization and GMOs, even with some of these people who are pretty much also getting into people's psyches from fear-based tactics. You know, then people automatically run and say, oh, I'm not eating meat anymore, I'm going to go eat vegetables. But the vegetables and the plants have been genetically modified too. And what kind of interest does this person who's presenting this information have in this particular crop? Maybe they have some stock interest in this particular crop. That's why they're telling you the other one having issues. But when you look into the crop that they are professing to be the right thing, you'll find out that it is also artificial too, just like organics. Or the USDA allows, if the farmer can prove, which they can because they got money, a scientific paper saying that the natural pesticides or natural herbicides that they're using is not working on the crops. So they need to use some form of the chemicals that's supposed to be not good for us on these crops. If they can prove that, then the USDA will allow them to utilize those chemicals. So even in organics, you're still getting pesticides and chemicals and stuff like that because the USDA allows a certain amount. And what thing in nature that's organic, that's seedless? You go into some of these supermarkets and they, mark these things as organic, and they have no seeds. Nothing in nature that's organic becomes seedless, unless it's certain berries and stuff like that grow in season, and they grow off the leaves, and they grow again because the tree stays there. But the things that usually come with seeds, that we're used to having seeds, and if you're not used to it because we're in this generation now with seedless, if you look back in history, you'll find that the very thing you're eating, like a seedless orange, always had seeds. Grapes always had seeds. They've been bred that way to not have seeds, and they say it's because it's for the consumer, and the consumer wants the seedless grapes and stuff like that because they're much sweeter. When in actuality, it's the influence of this, again, the parasite on a cellular level, calibrating the planet to its habitat, because when things are seedless and when things are manipulated on a DNA level, they dance to a different tune from nature. They're outside of nature, and is inside with something else's nature. That's why we also see with the modification of food, we see the genetic modification of the human. We see people that are from indigenous backgrounds doing things non-indigenous because the food coincides with the genetic modification of the human DNA too, because DNA from food has an impression on the DNA inside your body. You are what you eat, as they say. So it directly affects how cultures express themselves over generation to generation. And they're now at a point where they map the human genome, the biology, that they can restructure the code. They can change the structure of the DNA. And DNA, when you break it down, is just a composition of the natural elements of hydrogen, nitrogen, carbon, oxygen, and then it'll have a sugar molecule. And when you break the sugar molecule down, it's still consisted of those natural elements. So they manipulate the natural elements to get a desired trait or a desired race of people that will go along with the programming much better. Wild seeds react wild to unnatural things, and they know they can't kill a weed. You can't kill a wild seed. So it's always a constant effort to create something that will pretty much leave that species null and void. But every time they try, they got to come with something different. That's why there's always another method of spraying the food or coming up with a new crop and so on and so forth, because nature is responding to these unnatural things. And they continually fight. And it's the same thing amongst people. Yeah, they genetically modified us, but there's still somehow, some way, those people who are in our communities that are like those wild weeds. They're like them wild seeds. You cannot kill that kind of energy. So you got to keep finding ways to cut it off. The different methods they cut it off or to stagnate it. You know, that's why they keep us divided. Because they know among some of us there will be some wild weeds and wild seeds that will wake up the people. That will be like you know, arise, American, and show them the real way. So it's a constant battle, and one of the ways they do that is through our gut. That's why they got to genetically modify the food, and from the animals to the plants, so on and so forth. But it's always a thought process first. They first inoculate your mind with this genetic material that they feel is suitable, again, to their new habitat that they want to create. That's what it's all about.
Area code 605-562-3140, African American Ain't African Radio. We can also be reached at Facebook, AfricanAmericans.African, our chat room there. A lot of information is dropped off in there. Come on over, pick up some, share it, send it out to family and friends. Also, AfricanAmericans.Ain't African.org. Check out our website. A lot of good information on there. Brother, I want question I have. You have a lot of people now, they're going back to the land, and what a lot of the information that you're putting out is out there, and a lot of people, they're starting to see what's going on. Seedless watermelons are horrible, but they all over the place. It's like there's an overabundance of them. So you have some people now that are taking this serious, and people want to grow their own food.
Right.
When we go to get seeds,
yes.
How do we know what we should be getting? Is there a method that we can use to get the right seeds if we don't want to use those hybrid seeds?
Yeah, if you want to know if your seed is a hybrid, you're gonna have to. We have to become scientists again. We have to become. You know, we have to experiment now. So if you buy some seeds, you want to know if there's hybrids. Let's grow it. Don't eat it. Let it grow. See how it grows. And then you have to compare it to the original thing. If it shows the same traits as the original thing, then it is the original seed. If it doesn't, if it comes out deformed, or if you got fruit that's becoming sterile and so on and so forth, or it's a suicide seed where it will produce one time and then it can't produce again, you know something is wrong there. But it's very difficult because, again, all of this is by design. The genetic modification of these seeds is to prevent the American from arising. All indigenous people from rising. They understand they can do that by changing the DNA in the food, which has an impression on the DNA in the human's body. So this is a state of war we're in. This is where it's at, because it's so important for them to manipulate the food so that they can continue to manipulate the gene pool. And for you to get hybrid seeds is difficult because you got people who are selling seeds that they're saying they're wild, but they're hybrids too. They're not the actual original thing. And then they selling us seeds that are feral plants too. Just like they are feral animals, they are feral plants too that are not indigenous to this particular landmass. It may be from another area. So when you do that, you might have to compensate in a way where you jeopardize the original wild habitat to support this cultivated habitat now. So it requires more water. It requires more pesticides. It requires more antibiotics because it cannot thrive in that environment. It's an inferior byproduct from this genetically modified mind, this mad scientist that the planet is being plagued with. It's coming from that source of energy. So since that is the perspective on nature, we're now being plagued with that, and as a result, it's so deceptive on what to buy and what not to buy. but we have to experiment. Like I said, one of the ways you buy the seeds, let it grow. Don't eat it. Just observe it. Watch it. You buy something in the store, this is what I do sometimes. I'll buy some things in the store, and I'll let them decay, like greens, for example. If you sit your greens at the table, this happened to me one time. I had from Trader Joe's a salad mix, and this was by accident. I let it sit for a while, and what happened was there was fur, like this grayish fur coming up out of the greens. Greens, normally when they break down, they get soggy and like a black liquid kind of thing going on, usually when they decay. So when I automatically knew that something is wrong here because I seen how it broke down before. And that's our common sense. Rick always talks about that. Go back into your common sense. That's outside of all this complicated, scientific jargon bullshit, because we're in the land of doublespeak. So one thing may mean this amongst the populace and another thing amongst the scientific world. So since we're in the land of doublespeak, sometimes you got situations like that arise, like, when the salad showed that fur and stuff on it, showed me, and then it ignited something within me to go look into this more, and then it also let me know that even though something says it's organic or that this company is supposed to be reputable and it's greens, even now the greens they've been hybrid too. So now I have to let certain things decay now to see how they break down to know if it's natural or unnatural. Everything in nature that came in the original state corresponds with us and communicates with us on a cellular level. Everything. If you feel you come from an original source of creation, then make no mistake that this creation hasn't been coded in such a way it's enveloped in your makeup too, so that when you are in the environment of it, you can correspond, and it's this free-flowing, and it's like music between you and that particular thing in your environment, because that's how it's designed. Now, it's been designed in a different way. Now you're on a different rhythm, a different flow. You said it on the last show, Buck, about us being on a different time schedule. We're on somebody else's time. So I'm not saying for us to go back, because some people say, well, we can't do that. We can't do what they did in ancient times and so on and so forth. People always say that.
Right. You're absolutely right. But look, we got a couple of people that's been hanging on trying to get in with some questions. So we're going to take it to the phone line. Area code 201, you had a question or you had something you want to add?
Oh, no. I'm listening.
Oh, okay. Okay, brother, you can pick right back up where you left off.
Okay, and you got some people, too, that hit us with, you are what you eat. So, I had a girl told me one time, she's like, I like goat. Because the goat can eat anything. It can eat, garbage. It can eat boxes. It can eat whatever. Now, I want to be like that goat, so I'm gonna eat it. This is what she said. She got that from observing the goat. She figured that because the goat can do that, she'll now have the same kind of traits as the goat. You can eat anything. It doesn't work that way. You're not the same as the goat. And sadly enough, that's how the scientist thinks too. He thinks the same way. So he'll cross a goat with something that would naturally eat anything. It would know not to eat this bush over here because the bush has poison berries. Now, if they cross the genetics with another animal, it's confused in the wild. So it doesn't even know what to eat. So by accident, it'll eat some poison berries based off of the impression from the goat DNA that they create. And these animals that they're creating, these plants that they're creating, they are big issues on the environment. Big issues. You know, they're causing a lot of havoc. They're throwing off the ecosystem heavy, and they're throwing us off too because we are in tune with the ecosystem as well. And that's the state of war. To constantly do that, that's on purpose. That's on purpose.
Brother, I noticed that, you know, in the so-called African American community, there's a big proliferation of dogs, and I know dogs are one of the big hybrid things going on now. Huge hybrids now. So when you say that we're connected to the environment, because I know people that have dogs, man, they treat dogs better than their kids.
Yeah.
At a time in our history when dogs have been such a horrible reminder to us about dealing with these beasts. When you say that they're trying to make another person a hybrid human being, is that one of the ways that it's done, making us embrace things that all of us used to hate to see?
Yes, it is. Because every time they do these experiments, they notice a change in the generation, and a lot of times, these changes that, mostly all the time, these changes that they see is what they desire that particular breed or species to possess anyway, because it's more suitable to their plan, their overall plan, how they see nature to be, or how they see this world to become. So the proliferation of the dog, and at one particular time, like my father said, like in the 50s or 60s, there was dogs, just dogs everywhere roaming. Like they was like cats. People wasn't concerned with dogs like that. It wasn't until they started to get real trendy with them, and it became a commercialized thing or pop culture thing that everybody wants dogs. And you got to look at the nature of things, because you'll find the proponents behind these particular things that's unnatural, they have the same nature. From the pig to the dog, the way they act in the environment is unnatural. They have no regard. It's the same as the colonizer. Since the colonizer came on this land, everywhere, and colonizing came in, he's been a problem. He's been indifferent to the environment. So the dogs and the pig and this colonist are in an alignment. They are on the same frequency. So, and it's easy for people who resonate with that energy to come up under that spell and allow themselves to be inoculated in this madness. Some people, you know, from our community are just going with the trend. Some people from our community also, too, are resonating with something within themselves that is connected to animals. You know, because there were at a particular time where we were with animals like that, but not to the point where they was living in our homes and pets. We was able, you know, to, like, you know, not sleep with them and all these things, but recognize their energy for what they are, like in the spirit of a Kichiwasi, that their energy too, but at the same time keep the distance. They have their way, their own culture. They got their own thing going on, and we respect that. And some animals we would use to actually, like, you know, plow the land and so on and so forth. So there was a relationship with that. So some people are innately connecting with certain things, and other people, they're just going with the trend, and other people have the same nature of these things, so they connect with them.
Okay, speaking of animals, Cyre, I wanted to ask about, because we know that this is happening. This is Nisi. They are growing pig heart valves and various parts, getting people to embrace ligaments and things like that they are specifically breeding, you know, with these hybrid animals so that they can replace human parts. Can you elaborate, you know, a little bit on that?
Yeah, that's transgenics when they're doing that, because first and foremost, the main reason why they're doing that is because they're trying to create this new species. They see the world in a certain way. You know, they see most indigenous people as wasteless consumers anyway, or a threat to their new perspective on how the world should be. Now, when they do that, when they cross genetics from a human and the pig, and they implant the organ into the human, usually the body or the tissue, they'll have some sort of response. The body will respond to that foreign matter. But the reason why you have to use human genetics now with the pig is so that when it enters your body, the human DNA will speak for the pig's DNA in its way. You know what I mean? It'll take the guard down of the body. So once it comes in, the body won't respond. It won't have an immune response, so it lets down this guard. So now the pig's DNA is inside the human's body now because the human DNA expressed that it's okay. It's more dominant in that exchange and when it comes in. So the body recognizes the human DNA and sees no threat because the pig's DNA is camouflaged behind the human DNA. The same way they was using when they would come in, they would use somebody who, was American and look like phenotypically, they would look they black or whatever, dark skin on the surface. The colonizer would use them to invade the community because they will vouch for them. So that happens on a cellular level too. And then once they come in, it's like when the pig's DNA enters the human body, it now changes the genetic makeup, and it may not show in the first generation, but it'll show in the next or the next one after that.
We had a caller that had a question.
Hello?
Yes?
Hi. Oh, sorry, I was confused about how to get through. This is Deanna.
Hey.
From Jersey City. I just wanted to add to the comment about the animals, the dogs, and I agree that there is this crazy growing trend where you even see dark-skinned people carrying dogs in their purses and things like that. And normally, that wasn't our original nature. We would turn our face up when we would see people actually kissing their animals on the mouth and things like that. But as soon as we've grown to these same infatuations with these animals, this closeness that really just seems unnatural. As you said, even in ancient times, we understood that there was some sort of connection and purity to animals in itself who are here as, I guess you can say, as guardian angel types for us. But long story short, when you Google pictures of Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome, they'll show you them breastfeeding from a wolf, from a dog. So there is a species on this planet who actually takes well to these animals and has that closeness to these animals. And if our food and all the imagery, everything around us, it is being altered within our DNA. So yes, we are picking up those same practices and going about things those same way. I also heard a story about a young woman who was giving birth, and there was another woman next to her who had some troubles, a little complications, and they brought her to another room. And later on, she overheard the nurses discussing the case, which they weren't supposed to. But she heard that, the woman couldn't get pregnant with her husband. She tried getting pregnant with a boyfriend, and then she laid down with a dog, and next thing you know, she gave birth to nine, I don't know what to call them. I would say puppies, but they were, they were mixed bred. I mean, people might find that story hard to believe, but there are many cases like that where, you see, people interbreeding or having sex with these animals. They told us that, it's not possible to make children, but within some people, certain species, certain blood types, it is actually possible.
Well, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for sharing that with us. Sarai, did you have something to say about that?
No, she's on point. That was on point. They've realized that. Well, one of the reasons they say that they use human genetics with animals is so that they can see how certain drugs work. So they use the animal's body that has human genes, because through the ethics they cannot use a human, openly. Secretively, we're in the lab here. America's in the lab, but openly in the laboratory they'll use a monkey that has human genes so that it can see how it will react to certain drugs, and therefore, if it reacts well with it, they now can create a new drug to put on the market, and do the same thing with another animal and another drug to see what new drug they could put on the market. And it's also to understand the human genome. They've mapped the human genome, the whole biology, to the point where they now can change the code to speak whatever language they wanted to, whatever desired traits they can. They have something in bioengineering called knockout gene, where one of the genes becomes inoperative. Like they just turn off the switch, so that it won't have the usual trait that it would naturally show, and it will have the desired trait they want the particular thing to have.
Rick, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask him. Do you have any suggestions on what do you do? Where do you get your seeds from? Or what do you eat? Could you talk to us about a little bit about that? About what you do?
Yeah, sure. I try to eat when I can, have that availability. I don't try. I usually do all the time. I don't eat seedless fruit. Not on purpose. Sometimes when you buy those fruits that come in the container, you can end up eating some seedless watermelon or something like that. But usually when it's out of season, that majority of the watermelon in the supermarket, whether it's whole or broken down and put in a container, it's a hybrid. So I don't eat hybrid food. I stay away from it as much as I can, even though it's everywhere. I try to avoid the soy. For one, that's another federal plant too that has an environmental impact. I try to eat things that are indigenous to the land, like black walnuts, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, hazelnut, acorns. Acorns is everywhere. You can get those for free. You can harvest acorns. They drop. Pine nuts, dandelions. I eat that. Kale. Most things that are indigenous, I try to eat. I try to eat what I can. The black walnuts, you probably have to order them online. There's a company called Hammond where you can get black walnuts from, and they're good quality. And pecans is a good food too to eat. And you can make, if you want something like a burger or something, you can grind it up and make it into that kind of shape. And the same thing with sunflower seeds. You grind those up and you can make it into a patty or something like that.
On the black walnut, you're going to have to get your hands dirty.
Yeah.
You got to get your hands dirty on that one. Check this out. With the Ebola virus, we're hearing about this Ebola virus.
Yeah.
And this has been in the making for a while. People in the conscious community know that this has been talked about for a minute.
Right.
Can this Ebola virus, could that be something with these genetically modified foods? I'm not saying the Ebola virus per se, but how does all that play in with all of this genetically modified hybrid, this stuff that we're eating that's breaking us down? How does this Ebola scare play into that?
Key word you just said was breaking us down. It's like with the animals that are created in a hybrid form, their species or the generations become weaker, so they're more susceptible to these different viruses and diseases. And since we're being broken down genetically the same way, we become more susceptible to these diseases that they're creating. So they're creating a lot of these diseases. You know, they're cultivating them in labs and stuff like that. Or they come across the disease because Ebola, well, in the form of Ebola was here, I think in the 80s or something. They had, but it wasn't the same thing. But it acts like the same thing. So they'll isolate something like that and then concentrate it and then have it on stock. You know, why would you have that on stock? Biological warfare? Create a pandemic to feed a certain sector of the economy, like the vaccine sector, pharmaceutical sector. At the same time, when they inoculate with these vaccines we create, they don't know that we have DNA programming into these vaccines that will modify them even further into this new breed of species that we're continuing to create. That can be more well suited in our environment. We have to keep changing the environment, keep changing the people, because we're not really suitable for this environment either. You know, this particular parasite is not suitable either. And notice that it always has to use something to get to you. It always has to use the host. And the first host, the perfect host that it used to get to you was the European. The European is a hybrid without a doubt. We know that for a fact. It's a mutation in nature. So because it's a mutation in nature, its stock or breed is a little bit more weaker, or a lot more weaker than the original thing. So a parasite who needs to get to a new environment will utilize that thing or that species that's more easier to invade. Hence the European. European comes amongst you. You now are colonized. You now have these different diseases. You know, you have mixed breeded babies, and now we're in this state to where we are now. Ebola is a problem when people, and if you look around, if you look online and you look at the World Health Organization and you look at the diseases that's plaguing people with high pigmentation around the world, it's usually something dealing with the immune system. It's usually that. Whether it's hepatitis C, D, AIDS, HIV, Ebola, whatever, you name it. Because they're breaking down our immune system by us consuming these foods that are deficient in the original matrix, or that has the correct elements in the right order that we correspond with. And it's also the level of consciousness too. So when they don't only get us in the gut, they also get us in the mind with these campaigns through the propaganda, with all this information, there's all this double speak and so on and so forth that keeps us in a state of fear. Fear translates in the body chemically. Your defenses will begin to, your immune system will create, antibodies that will not create anything, when you're in a state of fear. And then out of fear, you go eat something for comfort or to anesthetize that fear. So one drives the other to get the end result. That's why you see in the Bible sometimes, this is what is very, very critical, why they don't teach certain things from that book. The Bible alludes to the devil dwelling in the bowels of man. Why would it say that? The devil dwells in the bowels of man. And we're talking tonight about food in particular. We're talking about genetic modification of food. And when you get a feeling about something, you don't feel it in your forehead, because I know a lot of people allude to the third eye and that being the intuition, but when you get a feeling, You don't say, I mean, I feel it in my forehead. You say, I mean, I feel this in my gut. I got a gut feeling about this one ain't right, or I shouldn't go over there. But if you've been compromised by what you consume, you begin to lose that intuition from your gut to tell you something is wrong or right. You wouldn't consume it. So they have to break that down first. And if anything, if you're going to say the pineal gland is the center of all this stuff and the inside or whatever, what feeds the pineal gland? The digestive system, not the other way around. So the state of the digestive system in the colon is very important. If they continue to keep you saturated in toxic foods, your third eye or fourth eye or whatever is always going to be calcified anyway, because you're eating food that keeps you in a constant state. You're not feeding your first brain, which is your gut. Your emotions is feeding the parasite within you. So when they were talking about we got worms and stuff like that, you got to do a cleanse and stuff. These things are colonizing your body, and it's driving you and your emotions, because your gut is essentially your first brain. Your gut has to be clear.
On the just to piggyback off what you're talking about in regard to the hybrid animals that we know they are making, that we're consuming. On that note, some of the side effects, you mentioned a lot of the things that have to do with our immune system, our autoimmune system and all of that. When we think about our people having high blood pressure, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, all of that kind of stuff. I'd like for you to just kind of give us a little bit more insight on some of these effects. And I'd like to remind everybody, I'm sure you already know, I think it was in 2012, because it wasn't last year, the FDA ruled that grocers and retailers, as far as food, agriculture, they do not have to distinguish between cloned food and what is supposedly uncloned food. They do not have to make any distinction about that. So if you could kind of, give us some of the side effects of these foods that we know are affecting our autoimmune systems, and we tend to have more of these things prevalent in us. We know that this has been going on for a long time.
Right. Okay. Okay, but before I answer that, I just want to share something with you. Now, this was published in the Ladies' Home Journal, an article. Now, this coincides with the questions that you have. And it shows you how they know where to attack to get these disease results. Okay? So it says the title of the article was How Smart Your Stomach Is. It was reported that scientists now believe there is a brain in your gut. Dr. G. Day Wood, chairman of the physiology department at Ohio State. Now, this is in 1996. Ohio State University actually calls the brain in your gut the little brain. This belly brain is really quite large, touting 100 million neurons, which line the digestive tract from the esophagus to the colon. The brain in the gut, which is scientifically termed the enteric nervous system, has many neurons. Neurons is where our information centers are, as the spinal cord. The following paragraph in the article reveals some very interesting observations. The little brain is connected to the big brain by the vagus nerve, a bundle of nerve fibers running from the GI tract to the head. And to the fascination of researchers, virtually all the classes of neurotransmitters found in the brain are also present in the gut. The more we learn about the enteric nervous system, the more similar it seems to the brain, says Michael Gerson, MD, chairman of anatomy and cell biology at Columbia University College of Physicians and Surgeons. Imagine your belly brain, the little brain, can know something before the brain between your ears does. Now, with all these diseases that you just mentioned and how it affects our immune system, is because that right there highlights the manipulation of your first brain. So your first brain is dictating your state of health by what you consume. You're not in communication anymore with, as what they call, the little brain and the big brain. there's a disconnect there. So in that disconnect, you're more susceptible to the lupus and all these things because you're no longer connected to the cosmic balance. Because those neurons correspond directly with the cosmic order in our environment, outside of our environment. They do. But what happens is those neurons, when you eat a whole bunch of food and stuff like that, because it's also at the cellular level that those neurons is connected to, it suffocates the cell now with mucus and stuff like that. So that blocks out that communication. It blocks out that connection from this cosmic balance, from this natural balance that we are in line with. So you can't communicate with the environment around you that you feel naturally connected to anymore because you keep consuming artificial things. Artificial plants, artificial animals, artificial information. So this constant attack from all sides is creating the end result, is giving light. And that's why it's so important that what we eat is really looked into. Like we have to talk about it because these problems that we're having is very microscopic in nature. It's hitting us at a cellular level. They're controlling us at a cellular level. That's why genetics has been so important. So Bill Gates, he had one of those TED Talks. His father was the head of eugenics. Planned Parenthood, not eugenics, but he was a known member of the Eugenics Society, but he was the head of Planned Parenthood. Where was the Planned Parenthood at in our communities, in the hood? They was depopularizing us that way. And again, it was done by a hybrid, an unnatural species coming with a cape and saying, I'm here and I got a solution to your problem. They create the problem, they give you the solution that's even more worse than the problem. And medications. Take this, but it got 10 different thousand side effects. They create a problem and they give you a solution that's even more toxic. So you can keep coming back and they say, hey, we got another solution. And you trust in them because psychologically you've been bred that way through the white Jesus and all these different methods of psychologically modifying your brain. From the indoctrination part of it to the food part of it that you consume. And then they about to have us feast in the wintertime on these foods or whatever, where the energy is different in the environment. You look at something like a grizzly bear, it doesn't eat all that flesh food in the wintertime. It's hibernating, it's resting. It's not consuming all that. It's a different time of energy. It's more time to rest and so on and so forth. But we have to constantly keep you from resting and keep you from getting grounded when you're getting rooted into the earth. So it's always a constant thing, a constant infiltration of your system. And you're going to stuff yourself. You're going to stuff yourself Thanksgiving and Christmas and these holidays. And you're not going to be able to connect with that, your gut, your brain gut. The neurons are going to be suppressed again. And as long as you keep doing that, we're going to keep seeing the end result with the lupus and so on and so forth. They say all the time, the immune is in the gut. The immune system is in the gut. They always say that. And we constantly proliferate in our gut with all this acidic waste. That's why when you get sick, you don't want to eat anything. You can't even smell the food anymore. Your body is very intelligent. It shuts those receptors down because you've been bred to eat off of sensations and taste and texture. So your brain kicks in and shuts down your communication with the world outside of you, so you won't eat till it can heal itself.
Hey, I just wanted to ask you, is there anything that we should be looking out for now, or is there anything that hasn't hit the stage yet that we need to know about?
As far as the food products?
As far as anything that you talked about tonight.
The clone meat, because like Nisi said, they don't have to distinguish between the two. They don't have to tell us anything about it. Now, coincidentally, we got all this black power stuff going on over here, and we supposed to be the original people, and the people that's actually taking it to the land, like in the UK, they're burning them genetically modified crops, and those are the Caucasians. Those are supposed to be the ones who are natural to this planet. Why isn't the natural people, the original people, having an issue with these genetically modified foods?
Could that be because you're saying because we are being grafted into being something else? Well, it's okay, boss. Could that be it? Because it seems like we're just eating it, like we're arrogant when we're consuming this stuff.
That's right. That is exactly why, because we've been bred that way. And again, I take you back to their definition of a hybrid. They said a cross between a free man and a slave. The free man would translate into the wild seed or the wild weed that was going at master's head and cracking their head. It wasn't laying down. That slave, the obedient Negro, who was going along with the plan, who liked the house, and all the amenities that came with being in the house and so on and so forth. Because in its mind, when it got free, it couldn't see itself surviving without master. It's the same thing with these plants. They cannot survive in the wild. The animals cannot survive in the wild. And if they do, they're so confused, they end up destroying the landmass. So they inoculate themselves in us and then let us go roam freely. And then as a result, we see certain natures that we wouldn't normally possess, is because they inoculated themselves into our DNA by us intermingling and messing with them. Not only on a reproductive level, but just by just letting them into our space and exchanging energy with them. They ain't coming in the spirit of a Kichiwa. They don't understand. You read something last time on your show, not the last one, but you said how the guy was saying they are nature people. We are not.
Yes.
They know who they are, and they know who you are too. They understand that, and a sector of them is actually mad because the more and more they dig into, the universe and to the they fracking and all these things, they keep finding you. They keep finding you. They keep seeing how aligned you are with this planet. They keep finding your genetics in one form of another, however it expresses itself. They keep finding you, but they can't find them. They see fragments of it, and then they come from that, and they see like, damn, this place has a source of light that is incompatible with my physiology. That's why they got to get you to hate that part of yourself. It's a trick. And then in turn, they're in the lab trying to figure out how to turn themselves darker, how to melanate themselves. Yeah. They trying to figure it out.
Last time going out to the phone call, does anybody want to share anything that this brother's laid out for us tonight?
Hey, I would like to just say something. I've listened to you from the very beginning, brother, and I appreciate the knowledge that you have dropped today. I have learned so much this evening, and I have been in the healthcare field for many, many years. And that's not necessarily healthcare, that's wealth care.
Yeah.
And I hope that you understand that connection, and I hope that the listening audience does as well. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Wealth care. I like that. Wealth care.
Well, brother, we come into the close of the show. I just want to ask you one question. You can give us your thoughts on. What does Mama Earth need us to do to help restore this balance?
We need to realign with Mama Earth. We need to eat from her sources. We need to not only, preach this stuff, but practice it. We need to go out into them fields again and get reconnected and put our hands into the soil. We need to talk to her. We need to talk to Mama Earth. Let her know that we still here, that we still willing to do what we have to do to make sure that the planet is not calibrated to an unnatural perspective. We can't keep voluntarily assisting in the mayhem and all these things that's out of order with us and Mama Earth. We can't keep slapping her in the face like that. We can't keep doing that because we will pay for it. we will definitely pay for it. You want to get along? Go ahead. But at the end of the day, you will pay for it.
Brother, go ahead, sir.
No, I was just saying we are already paying for it.
Yeah. Sir, if the people want to get in touch with you, what's a good way to contact you, brother?
They can email me at Cyre Sirrah at yahoo.com, CyreSirrah at yahoo.com. That's one way you can contact me.
Well, brother, listen, I want to give my greatest appreciation for joining us tonight. And this is the kind of information we need, because we're all watching this thing translate right before our eyes. It's happening. I was talking to a friend from Memphis today, and he was like, Ebola is here. It's here. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and I just appreciate you being a light out there, shining it on the masses. Appreciate it. And you have to come back and visit us someday soon.
Oh, yeah, of course. Of course. We can go into the plants or something.
Oh, cool. Well, cool. Well, brother, thanks again for joining us.
Okay, no problem.
All right. Rick, what you think, man?
Hey, brother laid it down, man. I mean, hey, I couldn't have said it any better myself. I probably could have, but hey, he laid it down. Hey, he informed me on some stuff too, and it's too bad that we don't have more time. There's some more things that I'd like to talk to him about myself. So I hope he is coming back, and I hope everybody out there who was listening, and would you also tell everybody else about this program also, because this was very informative. And one more thing, you was talking about let's preserve Mother Earth. There was a suggestion made a couple of months ago that let's start cleaning up this earth. Let's start picking up all this trash and everything. As a matter of fact, when I go out every morning to my little hustle, I always try to pick up every piece of trash that I see and just throw it in the trash can. And I wish everybody else could do that. Someone made that suggestion some months ago, and I think it was a very good idea. With that,
right.
Nisi, now I know you like that orange chicken. What do you think about what the brother shared with us tonight?
Oh, I mean, it's absolutely paramount that we are able to have this kind of knowledge where we can access it. You know, we're not big on books, and that's just who we are. And, you know, but when we have someone credible, such as this brother, he's young, he's the kind of person that most of us were always lamenting about that we don't have, so we have him. This is what we need. This is what we hunger for. And I hope he comes back soon, because we need this. It's the old saying that death starts in the colon. I read that in a biology book, and just listening to him, I see how that is. And it's not by happenstance, it's by design.
Right.
Well, brother, thank you again for joining us. You definitely have to come back.
No, there's no problem.
Thank you very much. And I want to tell the listeners.
Thank you, all of you, Macy, Rick. I like what y'all bring to the table too. So, we feed off each other. That's the spirit of the QQI. So we gotta keep that going. Keep that going.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I'd like to say to the audience, thank you for joining us again tonight. And this is the kind of information we like to bring. And if we're going to do things different, seeing that they're trying to change up the environment on us, one of the things that we're going to have to start playing chess and come with a backup move. And one of the moves that we can do is, being that we're being miseducated badly in these brainwashing systems, having online classes with this brother as your first grade teacher, as one of your kids' first grade teacher, one of your grandchildren's first grade teacher, because this is the stuff that our youngsters need to listen to. So I want to say thank everybody again for joining us tonight, and we'll be back Thursday with some information just like this. Thank you for joining us this evening.